Okay, this is part 3 continued, lesson 9-1 part 3 continued, and at the end of the last video I left you with this question. What number completes the square? So it's like we talked about. 2 times what gives us the number in the middle? Well, 15 is not an even pretty number. So 15 divided by 2 gives us 15. 2 times 15 divided by 2, because what happens here? These would cancel out and would just have 15. So we take the number that's being doubled and then we square it to get the number that completes the square. So 15 squared is 15 times 15. So that's going to be 225. And then 2 squared is 4. So the number that completes the square here is 225 over 4. So essentially what you can grab from this is that you divide that middle number by 2 and then you square it. And then to write it factored, which I didn't ask you to do, would be x plus 15 over 2 squared. Divide the middle. I like to draw like a kind of like a check mark. Divide by 2 and then square it to get the number that goes in the blank. So we're going to do some examples. We got A, B, C, and D here. Solve each by completing the square. So the first thing we should do is make A equal 1. So on this one, A equals 4. So the first thing I need to do is divide everything by that leading coefficient. This only works if A equals 1. So I divide everything by 4, and I get x squared plus 4x minus 5 over 4 equals 0. Okay, the next thing we need to do is make room for a new constant. So I'm going to I need to bring down the x squared plus 4x. But I need to make room right here. So I'm going to add the 5/4 to both sides just to get it out of the way. It's not really important to what we're trying to do here. Move it over to the side. And where it used to be, I'm going to leave a blank. And then I need more room. So I'm going to drag this over here. This is A. Okay, so I added the 5/4 to the other side because I needed it out of the way. And up with 5/4. So the number that goes in this blank, whatever I add to one side, I have to add to the other, right? So the number that goes in a blank will also be added to the other side. Now follow this carefully. To figure out what goes in the blank, 2 times what gave us 4? Well, that number was 2. And to figure out what goes in the blank, I'm going to square the 2, and that's going to be 4. What I add to one side, I have to add to the other. And now factor this. Well, if it's a perfect square, then we can do x, this number here, plus 2 squared. And like I said, check it like this. Divide by 2, I get 2. Square it, I get 4. So I factored it. Now I need to simplify this business over here. 5/4 plus 4 over 1. Get common denominators by multiplying by 4. So I have 5/4 plus 16 over 4. Now I can just do 5 plus 16 and get 21 over 4. So I have x plus 2 squared equals 21 over 4. Let me erase some of this highlighty business. Now that I've completed the square, I will solve it. Take the square root of both sides to cancel out the square. I get x plus 2 equals, don't forget the plus or minus, square root of 21 over the square root of 4. Well, I know the square root of 4, that's going to be 2. Then simplify 21. 21 is 3 and 7. There are no perfect squares in there, so I'm just going to leave it as the square root of 21. And then I just subtract 2 from both sides, and I get that x equals 2 plus or minus the square root of 21 over 2. Seems like a lot, but break it down step by step. Take your time on these. Really think through the process. Okay, I'm moving on to example B, which I'll go ahead and do over here. So what was the first thing I did on A here? I divided by the leading coefficient, which in this case is 5. So I need to take care of that first. Only works if A equals 1. So we have to force A to equal 1. So end up with x squared minus 6x minus 3/5 equals 0. Now we need to complete the square. Oops. I'm going to make room, so I'm going to add the 3/5, get it out of the way. And I'm going to get x squared minus 6x, save room, equals 3 over 5. Time to complete the square. I'm going to throw in a blank here, and what I add to one side, I add to the other. To fill in the square, what number completes the square? 2 times what gives us negative 6? Well, that would be negative 3. Then the number that completes the square would be negative 3 squared. So that's 9. What I add to one side, I add to the other. Now we have to factor. And that's going to end up being x minus 3 squared. So that number, that's what goes in here. 2 times negative 3 gave us negative 6, and negative 3 squared gave us 9. And now I need to combine these guys, so I need common denominators. So I'm going to multiply by 5 and get 3/5 plus 45 over 5. So I get 48 over 5. X minus 3 squared equals 48 over 5. Now I can solve this by taking the square root. Cancels out the square, and I'm just left with x minus 3 equals plus or minus. Now I have the square root of 48 over the square root of 5. I'm going to break down the 48 first here. So 48 is 2 times 24, 2 times 12, 2 times 6, 2 times 3. So I have one group of 2's, two group of 2's. So it's going to be 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 3 over radical 5. So I'm going to take 2 2's out because there are two groups. So 2 times 2 times radical 3 over radical 5 is going to give us 4 radical 3 over radical 5. I could have skipped some steps in there, but I wanted to make sure I showed you. Now we need to get rid of the radical 5 on the bottom. So that gives me 4 radical 15 over 5. And then we need to add 3. X equals 3 plus or minus 4 radical 15 over 5. I'll leave that up there for a moment. Okay, I'm going to pause here and do the other two videos in a moment. I want you to try to do C for me. Just try to do it. Do the best you can.